There are a lot of severely underrated weapons in Cyberpunk 2077 that I think make up some of the best weapons in the game. I tried to mix it up with weapons that are included in the base game and some weapons that you'll need Phantom Liberty for, also the mods and attachments that make some of these weapons just absolutely insane, plus the cyberware and perks that you can pair with them if you want like a whole build to go with it and really get the most out of that weapon. I kind of went a little overboard with some of these. So here we have the one and only Tinkerbell. Alright man, before you say anything, just listen. I know it's a lot more fun to shove a katana through someone's spine, but the Tinkerbell's ability to knock anyone unconscious is arguably the most broken thing in the game, as boring as it might be to use. Most weapons in this game have the potential to be really good if you form an entire build around it. This weapon is the opposite. You can use it with whatever build you want. It is simple as heck. Every heavy attack where you hold the swing button has a chance to stun and knock enemies unconscious, and it has a pretty high chance to knock them out, high enough to the point where it might be the fastest way to take out many boss enemies and even some bosses, especially when you're playing at a higher difficulty like very hard, since your damage and the enemy's health doesn't ultimately matter since you're mainly going for knockout chance. And the knockout chance isn't even really a chance, everyone just falls down. If nothing else, it is extremely good at knocking cyber psychos unconscious. Even this cyber psycho in the Phantom of Night City cyber psycho sighting, oh my god, that's a tongue twister. I didn't think it was possible, but I took him out on very hard before he could even react, and before he teleported to the next area, which is like a scripted event where it usually stops you from being able to win the fight yet. He teleported to the next spot unconscious. If you have an entire ship of max tac dropping down, they're gone in seconds. To get Tinkerbell, it can be found during the side quest called The Hunt. To unlock The Hunt, you first need to complete the Life During Wartime main job in Act 2, given to you by Pan Am. You can wait time, and you should eventually get a call from Elizabeth Perales after that, who gives you a quest called I Fought the Law, which then leads to The Hunt. During The Hunt, this is where you come over to the Edgewood Farm with River. Once you're at the main building here, and you're upstairs, there will be a computer that you can use and a button underneath it that opens up a hidden door, like a little secret passage, and that's where you can find Tinkerbell, the iconic baton. You can also grab it in Phantom Liberty from the black market vendor if you missed it. Like if you have the DLC, it's the fastest way to get it. This video has been brought to you by a game with an unexpected collab, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think this is one of the coolest collabs that they've done in here. It takes me back to simpler times. Raid has partnered with Paramount to bring you Raphael, Michelangelo, Donatello, Leonardo, Shredder, and on top of them, April O'Neil, and more of like her original look. I really like the designs of all of these guys, but especially the Ninja Turtles. These are some of the sickest designs that these guys can have. And you get Michelangelo for free. You just have to log in for 7 days in a row. If you log in for another 7 days, you get a lot of helpful rewards, but that's also when you unlock phase 2 of the event where you can get Mikey to his level 5 awakening. You have until November 13th to claim Michelangelo, but you need to start the Michelangelo chase event by October 30th. You can also fight Shredder in his event dungeon to earn the Chronophage gear set. Just make sure that you click on my link or scan the QR code so you don't miss out on even more free stuff. For using my link, you will immediately receive a huge starter pack containing the epic champion Tayrel. After hitting level 15, you'll unlock an additional pack giving you the epic Rector Drath. And then if you're a new player, you can pick one of 4 promo codes for a legendary champion of your choice. Use the promo code TreeHugger to unlock the legendary champion Green Warden Rourke. Use Get Alice to get Alice the Wanderer, one of my favorite characters in the game. Use the promo code Desert Queen to get to Hanorrak, or use Monkey King to get the legendary Sun Wukong. If I was going to pick one of these characters, although I really like Alice the Wanderer, I've got to go with Sun Wukong because he's probably the best all-around character. You can come find me under the name Astrosiv and join my clan called Astro's Minions. But yeah, click my link down in the description or scan the QR code to download Raid Shadow Legends for yourself. Thank you to Raid for sponsoring this video. Our next super powerful, highly overlooked weapon is the Guillotine X-Mod 2. To get it, just come over to the Crest Street fast travel point in Dogtown. So yeah, you need the Phantom Liberty DLC for this one, but from there you just head on straight under the bridge where you'll see like these yellow and red storage containers. Just go up that catwalk where a bunch of pedestrians might be walking around, and there's a few flights of stairs here, but up at the very top is a locked door. You can only open this up and get the weapon if you have 20 attribute points into body.
Gone for a week
I wanted to leave you in suspense there in case you don't, but if you don't have 20 points in body, do not worry, my man. Just head on over to the right of the door and jump on top of the barrels there. You might want to have to shoot all of the glass out of the window before it gives you the option to grab it, but then you can reach your little rat paws in there and snatch up your new weapon. But there you go, you have the Guillotine X Mod 2, an iconic power SMG that deals 125% headshot multipliers and gives you a 5% burn chance for each round that hits an enemy, but we can make it a lot better. There are a couple of different mods and variations I recommend using for the Guillotine. If you want, you can use the Firecracker, the iconic weapon mod that makes your fired rounds turn into explosives, and then the Pyro mod that makes it so that each hit bullet has a 50-50 chance to cause thermal damage. It also has a separate 15% chance to cause burn damage, which the Guillotine already gives us a 5% chance, so with Pyro we now have a 20% chance for each shot hit to cause burning. And those two mods are fine, you can get by with those just fine. It's really powerful. But I recommend trading one of those out. For me, I usually swap Pyro and replace it with the Ready Steady mod. At first, Ready Steady doesn't look like much, it gives us 15% less recoil. Cool, but what's that little thing on the bottom there? Another 35% less vertical recoil and 0 horizontal recoil. But to get that buff, you have to be behind cover. Well, actually you don't, as long as you have the Immovable Force hand cyberware. This piece of cyberware is a freaking game changer because it has the ability to take any effect that you would usually need to be behind cover to activate and gives you those bonuses without the need to be behind cover. So you get those bonuses always as long as you have this cyberware equipped. On top of that, Immovable Force tacks on another 35% less recoil and 25% less bullet spread. The bullet spread you notice immediately. All of those bonuses makes it so that you might as well be shooting a laser out of this thing. It's insane, especially because recoil and bullet spread are the only real downsides to the unmodded version of this weapon. Well, now it has minus 25% bullet spread, 0 horizontal recoil, and 85% less vertical recoil. It basically has none. It's a monster. Ready Steady you can get from any of the vendors throughout the game, any of the weapon vendors, as well as airdrops in Phantom Liberty. Same goes for Pyro. If you want to get those above tier 3, the legendary versions, I believe you have to get those from the Phantom Liberty airdrops though. The iconic Firecracker mod, however, requires you to spend the Chimera Core, the resource that you get from the store. You only get one Chimera Core. There's 4 different iconic mods that you can create from that. I don't know if the Firecracker is necessarily the best, but if you're going to be using power weapons for your playthrough, it's probably going to be the best for you. Either way, slap on either Pyro or the Firecracker mod, along with Ready Steady. For the muzzle attachment, if you want to use stealth, it sounds silly for a full auto SMG, especially if you're shooting explosive rounds, but the tier 5 CX-10, the silencer that you can get from Phantom Liberty airdrops, is amazing. You get a slight nerf with 10% damage reduction, but 150% added onto stealth damage, while at the same time getting guaranteed critical hits while you're undetected. Even if you don't use stealth too often, it helps immensely when you first get into combat, especially if you're using other perks and cyberware that give you extra time before you're detected. Okay, so I think Errata is pretty underrated, but there is a more powerful version of Errata, and is an actual sword that isn't a katana. Well, I guess it's technically a machete, but it's the Volkodov. This is basically a much harder hitting, but at the same time slower swing speed version of some of the best katanas. Along with that though, it also has a special thermal ability that lights enemies on fire, and when they're on fire, you can shoot them to deal much more damage. When you shoot an enemy that is burning, you have a 100% crit chance. Every shot is a crit. For each of those burning enemies, it increases the crit damage. So you'll deal more damage if you have 3 enemies lit on fire than 1. And the burn chance on this is actually 3% higher than Errata. I think the best type of weapon to go with this is an SMG, since you're already close range and you want to do as much damage as possible while the enemy is burning. Accuracy is lessened for each burning enemy, but that's not much of a problem close range with an automatic weapon like some of these SMGs. Erebus is the best possible weapon to go with it in my opinion, since not only is it possibly the best weapon in the game, but it does more damage to enemies at lower health. so the sword is damaging enemies a ton, if not one-shotting them, and then anybody left is probably bleeding or burning and now weak to bullets, so we just finish them off with any gun, preferably Erebus, or any SMG like the guillotine that we went over, where accuracy is really a non-issue with that. Most of the time I'm just using the machete though. You know, you don't have to always be switching weapons to the SMG for this to be powerful. The machete is powerful enough by itself, it's just an added bonus and kind of makes for some fun gameplay. Berserk is obviously a great operating system with it, since it's a melee weapon and you're slicing and dicing through everyone. Maybe the best choice. A Sandevistan is probably the next best, but what you probably didn't think of is a cyber deck. This weapon goes just as great with a Netrunner, maybe even better. Netrunners are already broken in comparison to everything else, but if you want to combat Netrunner, the Volkodov is really good to pair with it. For one, you can use Contagion, which detonates an explosion once you burn an enemy. This is already good with the Shingen smart weapon, which also shreds through enemies that the Volkodov sets on fire. So there are so many different combinations you can use for this. You know, you could just use the Volkodov, set some guys on fire, and then finish everyone off with the Shingen, or you can apply Contagion to one or a couple of different enemies, and while it's spreading, move in and start slashing them with the Volkodov to slice them up and burn them, which will cause an explosion. And if there's anybody left, that's where I just switch to a smart weapon. Or you can just set enemies on fire with the Volkodov, light them up with these smart weapons like the Shingen, and then you can use Contagion while the fire is already going to cause them to explode. Either one of those works freaking great, and most enemies aren't going to live enough to even do all of that. So just remember that you can set enemies on fire and then use Contagion for the explosion, or do the Contagion first and then set them on fire, which is a little more fun. You know, using smart weapons like the Shingen or Ashura or Yinglong are just extra. The Shingen just pairs with it even more, since you can use the Volkodov's fire to get the damage bonuses from the bullets, plus ignite Contagion all at the same time. If you want to go with either one of those builds to go with this, either a melee bladed build or a Netrunner, check out my most recent Netrunner and Katana builds, where this weapon pairs with either of those perfectly. You get the Volkodov during the Waiting for Dodger side gig found over here in Dogtown. So you need the Phantom Liberty DLC.
Get down. Can't get spotted by Dodger's men.
Once you're in the building and are traveling around as a trio, kind of deep into the quest, this whole quest takes like maybe 10 minutes max. But towards the end, you'll be opening your second double doors that required a 20 body stat to open. Alternatively, you can use the breach protocol terminal in the server room, but however you handle it, once you open up those doors, inside of that room that the doors lead to, there's an airdrop crate stuffed over there in the corner. That's where you get your new iconic weapon. You know you're in the right place because there's like 2 enemies there, and then it leads over to the garage where you finish the side quest. A lot of people at least know of Jackie's pistols, the La Chingona Doritos, you know, those dual wield gold pistols, but not a lot of people seem to know how dang good these pistols can be, mostly because they weren't always this good. You get them after completing the Heroes mission after the prologue. This is where you can grab the pistols if you come back to the bar, the El Coyote Kojo. Kojo or Koho? The first time you pick these up, you're like, wow, they gave us 2 pistols. How do I equip both of them? There's no way they gave us dual wield. Well, you're right, they did not. I don't know why, it still blows my mind how they didn't do this. They give you 2 pistols and then don't let you dual wield them. But they do function well together to make for some crazy pistol combat thanks to the synchronization abilities that they gave it in 2.0. Basically, for every headshot that you get with one of these pistols, it reloads 1 round automatically the next time that it's holstered. So these are really only worth it if you're accurate enough to headshot enemies without missing too often. Otherwise, you're just wasting more ammo and kind of negating from the actual benefit. But if you have both of them equipped and switch in between them both, they will automatically reload while the other Dorito is being used. So for example, I use pistol 1 and either run out of ammo or I'm just low on ammo and want to refill, I just switch to the other. Now I can use this pistol, and when I switch back to pistol 1, it's already reloaded. Switch again, same thing. You just keep switching instead of reloading. It also works with just 1 pistol. Just switch weapons or holster that pistol and it'll reload by itself. It's more like it self-loads in the holster and doesn't need the other one. Having both of them just makes it so that you never have to reload because they're both doing that effect. But if you got something like a hybrid build where you use pistols and melee weapons, it's sort of the same function since you never have to reload it. Either way, these things are strong as heck. It's not the absolute strongest pistol in the game, but it's up there, especially in terms of pistols that you can get really early on. On top of all of the extra ammo you get, for every headshot, both your crit chance and your burn chance also increase. So it's a weapon that highly rewards you for headshots. And oh yeah, it also gives a burn chance. I didn't even mention that. That's actually one of the big factors of what makes it so good. Obviously, the legendary optics are the go-to for the sights/scopes that you want with it, but the CS10 silencer is what you want to go with in the end for the muzzle. The pistols section in the cool tree also gives us a bunch of headshot bonuses, which are a no-brainer for pistols in general, but especially when these pistols revolve around headshots. The middle tree is all for stealth. That is helpful to have since you're already investing in cool, but not 100% necessary. For me personally, I don't crouch enough for half of these to be that useful. Unless you're deciding not to use a silencer, I would also grab the Killer Instinct perk at the bottom right. The surrounding perks are worth grabbing too, but at least get Killer Instinct, just the main one down there at the bottom. This just increases our damage for headshots while using a silencer by 25%, which is just huge. For cyberware, the focus perks from the pistols section of cool pair really well with the Sandevistan to really turn the game into easy mode. I don't know if there's another operating system that goes good with these pistols unless you're using them with like a Netrunner build, in which case obviously a cyber deck. So Sasquatch's hammer has its downsides, the downsides all being mobility related. You cannot dodge, dash, or sprint while using it, and the attack speed is slow. But god dang man, this thing smacks like a truck. The slow swings brings down its total DPS, but it is more than made up for with how dang hard it hits, and this might just be the #1 weapon I never hear anyone talking about in this game. I've never heard of anybody using it. I'd say there's like a 99% chance you've either barely used this weapon since you picked it up or just never touched it, which makes sense. When you start walking at 0.5 miles per hour, it's a tough sell, but it has a 20% stun chance on each hit and 75% armor penetration. Regular enemies don't have armor, so that only really helps for bosses and mini bosses, but that's where this weapon really matters anyways. You really only take this weapon out of the holster or switch to it when you're close enough to an enemy that you want to send to the Shadow Realm. It's best used on bosses and beefier enemies, anyone who has a lot of health or is slow or immobile, but really just tanks. You kind of make them immobile with the hammer anyways. Once you actually start hitting someone, it's hard for them to run away. It melts bosses. Like Atom Smasher, for example, the guy is toast. It has its downfall with larger groups of enemies. If you have a bunch of small enemies, it's not as good, since this is, for some reason, one of the only melee weapons that cannot hit multiple enemies in the same swing. So the swing itself cannot hit 2 enemies, which just doesn't make sense. Out of all the melee weapons, the giant hammer can't do that. But you can hit multiple enemies at the same time if you do something like use the Quake perk from the blunt weapons section in the body tree. All of the perks around that, pretty much you want to grab all of these blunt weapon perks anyways, but Quake, which on PC if you press the Q key, lets you slam the ground. The really good part of it though is the Epicenter perk that goes along with it, where you can use the reinforced tendons to double jump and then press Q to make the Quake even better. For your cyberware, a Sandevistan can help you for situations where you need to quickly dodge or chase down an enemy without having to put it away first. It's not a bad pick to go with this weapon at all, but I think Berserk is not only an underutilized operating system, but goes really good with melting boss enemies with this hammer. I highly recommend something like the Militech Berserk cyberware to get the most out of Sasquatch's hammer. Also, the Adreno Trigger cyberware that you can get in Phantom Liberty from the airdrops or Dogtown's vendors. It gives you a movement speed buff when entering combat and reinforced tendons to let you double jump. Anything that helps movement, you kind of want to get, and those are like the only movement helping things that you can get for this build, or for this weapon I mean. Any of the movement speed perks don't work with it sadly, but again, you just kind of carry this hammer in your holster, take it out when you run into a boss, and they're gone. They're eviscerated. You get Sasquatch's hammer in Act 2 during the I Walk the Line quest, where you're up to those Voodoo Boys shenanigans, and eventually you come across a mini-boss named Sasquatch. I think everyone who's played this game knows who this is. In your first playthrough or two, since it's relatively early in the story, she might give you some trouble, but it's not too hard of a fight. Just don't forget to loot it from her or on the floor nearby. You can also get Sasquatch's hammer from the black market vendor in Phantom Liberty. But yeah, that is it. This video was a lot longer than I anticipated. I thought I was going to have a lot more weapons, but I just spent way too much time on each one. Let me know if you want more videos like this, where I go over like some underrated weapons and kind of builds to go with it. And let me know your favorite weapons down in the comments, or a weapon you think is underrated that I could put in the next video like this. But yeah, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, especially if you actually watched the entire video. And thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring the video. Don't forget to click the link down in the description and claim all of the free stuff that I went over. See ya.